Hi all, DT Neal here, talking to you about various things, storytelling, genre, pop culture, and the like. Specifically, I want to talk about The Who. I am a big-time Who super fan. They were a big impact on my young self, and I have to qualify it that for me, The Who that I love is circa 1965 to about 1974. That for me is the purest expression of the Who at the height of their creative powers. And I actually go into a discursive ramble in Samantha, book 1 of the Wolf Shadow trilogy. I have one of the characters talk about the Who, which is absolutely like a character speaking. I'm speaking through that character in terms of what I think is great about the Who. But I'll without going into that in detail, I'll speak to it here in the sense that there's the individual members of the band, and there is the Who, which is the gestalt organism that they created, that the 4 members created to make the Who. They made a monster, and that's why they were so astounding as live performers, particularly. That dynamic that they had, which was unique and impossible truly to replicate. There are plenty of bands that have been influenced by the Who, but nobody out-Who's the Who. They were phenomenal in that regard. And I have this weird thing that I do where, like, for example, I saw the 75% Who in 1989 in Cleveland. And it was a great show. It was a great show, but it was, for me, it was the 75% Who, because it was, the 3 surviving members, and their supporting band members. And because obviously when Keith Moon died, the Who, the true Who, died. And they know that. Pete knows that. I'm sure Roger knows that. And they kept going. They made a conscious business decision to keep going, even though they understood that while they could deliver something, they couldn't deliver what they originally had when Keith Moon was alive. And for me, it's the same when John Entwistle died. So the what's calling itself the Who today is the 50% Who. It's Pete and Roger. Now, Pete would probably get his back up and say, like, his contribution is greater than, it's not a co-equal contribution, and that he made it so much of what it is. But it's not true. It's like there was a group effort inherent in the Who. And when you see them in their pure form, in the 100% Who, it's just breathtaking. It's amazing. I will forever be in awe of how much power they had on stage. Nobody could compete with them in their prime. Nobody. And people. I mean, I love Led Zeppelin too. Who I love all sorts of bands, but they're there. But I and this might be triggering for some people, but when you look at Led Zeppelin live stuff, it doesn't hold a candle to the Who live. It doesn't hold a candle to it. Led Zeppelin, their albums are their strong point, because there's a great deal of production inherent in that. Whereas those live chops, if you really want to see how to kick ass as a live band, the Who, you must study the Who on some level. So watching this 50% Who live, their latest farewell tour, this one I think is probably going to be the real farewell because they're so old now. And again, I think when I saw the 75% Who in '89, they were in their 40s. Okay, now they're in their 80s, and I part of me wonders, like, are they going to sing My Generation? Because hope I die before I get old. That line doesn't quite do it. And I know maybe there's bills to pay and they're doing whatever to squeeze, get that last bit out there. But for me, there's no illusions. It's the 50% Who, the two surviving members that are remaining. And, what they did in their prime was legendary, and still, and deservedly so. That they've continued long past their shelf life is cynical. It kind of bums me out. Like, some people will go just because they want it. It's the latest farewell tour that they've done. But I also, can't get away from it in Chicago. It's the Who police coming after me for daring to say this. But it's a very different experience than in their prime, for sure. I don't know why people would see it, because I just, and they won't call it the Pete and Roger show. They won't call it that. They'll call it the Who, because it is their thing, and they can do it. I understand that. For me, one of my disappointments was not getting a chance to catch the 75% Who when they played at House of Blues, and these very stripped down, small venue sets. And they played there, which I think would have been just mind-boggling. I just didn't have the means to catch, to throw down for that at that time. Versus the arena show, which I saw in '89, which was, again, the 75% Who. It was an arena experience. That was great. That was cool. It was fun. It was actually a good time. The T-shirt that I had from that one, I wore that thing to death. I wore it to oblivion, and it's long since gone. But I don't know why I'm rambling about this. I just think it's really strange to find us in this point where rock has moved out of its position of primacy that it had in terms of pop culture. Like, it was a big thing for a while. It's kind of the way that, like, boxing had a heyday, and the world moved on. And yes, boxing's still out there in some fashion, but it will never hold that place, that pride of place that it had in its heyday. And rock is getting like that. So there are these older acts that are cashing in on what's left of their reputations. But it's impossible for me to look at that with I have every, like, again, all the albums from their heyday that I love dearly, live and studio, or what I consider their heyday. And for me, there's no reason for me to catch the 50% Who, paying a pretty penny for that. And so I'm kind of curious who is going to catch this 50% Who. Is it boomers with deep pockets who are inclined for a little bit of nostalgia act? I don't know. I don't really know. And younger folk, I can't even imagine what they would do. Anyway, it's not just the Who. There are a lot of bands that do that. I just mention it because I'm a big Who fan. At some point they'll be gone, and all that will be left are the memories of and their legacy is so strong in terms of its contribution to rock. I hope people can see that and appreciate that, and be inspired by it. Maybe even some young folk might actually look at that and go, "Wow, this really is great." For my Gen X self, rocking still matters. We still think about that stuff. We still get moved by rock tunes because we grew up at a time when there was so much good music to listen to, and so much of that feels like it's gone. So there it is. That's my 2 cents on that.